The start of take one in the videotape deposition of Blake Farenthold. Today is August 1st, 2018. Time on record 10:56.
Can you raise your right hand, please, sir? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. Would you please state your full name?
Randolph Blake Farenthold.
And how old a gentleman are you, sir?
55.
All right. Where were you born and raised, sir?
Corpus Christi.
And where did you go to high school?
Cornet Word Academy.
And what year did you graduate?
1980.
And tell us a little bit about your undergraduate education.
Bachelor of Science, Radio, Television, Film, University of Texas at Austin.
All right. And what did you do upon your graduation from UT?
Went to St. Mary's Law School.
All right. And what year did you graduate from St. Mary's?
That would have been 89.
All right. Are you a licensed lawyer as we sit here today?
Yes, sir.
And you've kept your bar license in effect since you passed the bar?
Yes, sir.
All right. And tell us a little bit about your employment after you graduated from law school.
After I graduated from law school, I went to work for the Clayburgh Law Firm in Corpus Christi.
How long did you work for them?
About 8 years.
Were you ever a partner in that firm?
I was not.
Okay. Why did you leave the firm?
I started my own computer consulting company.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Opened Farenthold Consulting LLC. We were a web design, system integration, and training firm.
And how many folks did you have working for you?
I think we peaked out at about 20. It was varied depending on the workload.
In what years did you operate that business?
I ran that for about 9 years as well, until I sold it to a competitor.
To a competitor?
Yep.
To whom?
It was, what was it? Southern Networks, I think.
And in what year did you sell it?
I don't remember the exact year. It would have been in the early 2000s.
That's fair enough. And what was your next job?
I worked uncompensated as a co-host on a morning radio show, which I'd actually been doing for a while. It was great for promoting the business. I continued to do that and manage family investments.
In which radio station?
That would be KKTX in Corpus Christi. Actually, there were two radio stations. It was KEYS for a while, and then the person I worked with moved to KKTX, and I went with him.
All right, great. And how are you employed today, sir?
I'm the legislative liaison for the Calhoun Port Authority.
And you've been in that position since when?
About 3 months, a little under 3 months.
What was your start date?
It was I think it was mid-May. Right around the middle of the month. I think either the 14th or the 16th, somewhere in there.
Let me ask you to review Exhibit 6, I think what's previously been marked as Houseman Exhibit number 6. And I'll ask you if you've ever seen that before, sir.
I have.
All right, and what is it?
It's a statement from the House Committee on Ethics.
And what is the House Committee on Ethics?
It's a committee of the House of Representatives.
But what do they do?
They handle the ethics rules and investigations.
Okay. Investigations of whom?
Of anybody that they choose.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you were the subject of an investigation that's referenced in Exhibit 6?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to ask you a few factual questions about the chronology, if that's okay. That the committee received its referral from the Office of Congressional Ethics on or about June the 29th, 2000.
Actually, it wasn't a referral from the Office of Congressional Ethics. It was a recommendation of dismissal.
Okay, let's follow along. I'm trying to see what you agree with and what you don't agree with in the press release from the Ethics Committee. So let's go down to the investigation background. If you'll follow along with me, I'm just going to ask you, is it true what the House Ethics Committee says here, when it says on June 29th, 2015, the committee received a referral from the Office of Congressional Ethics regarding whether Representative Farenthold sexually harassed a former member of his staff, discriminated against her on the basis of her gender, and retaliated against her for complaining about the alleged unlawful treatment. Is that true or not, what the House Ethics Committee says here?
Again, I would take issue with the word referral. There's I believe in the documents that have been produced, there is the actual document from the Office of Congressional Ethics, and I do not believe it's titled referral.
So you think this sentence is not accurate?
I don't think that's entirely accurate, no, sir.
Did you point out at any time after April 12, 2018, the date of this release by the House Committee on Ethics, this alleged erroneous statement they had in here?
No, sir.
Okay. Why not?
I didn't feel it was necessary.
Okay. The statement is made at the bottom, and I'll ask you here if this is accurate or not. Due to the seriousness of the allegations referred by OCE, on September 28, 2015, the committee announced it would continue to review the allegations.
I believe that's what the committee decided.
Okay. Then it says the committee reviewed more than 200 pages of documents and interviewed witnesses.
That's not an accurate statement either. It says there were 200,000 pages.
So is it accurate or not that they reviewed more than 200,000 pages of documents and interviewed witnesses?
I can't tell you. I'm not on the committee. I don't know how many documents they actually reviewed. The production was voluminous.
Okay. And the statement on the paragraph that begins on December 7th, 2017, the committee announced it voted to establish an ISC with jurisdiction to investigate the allegations referred by OCE, as well as allegations that Representative Farenthold made inappropriate statements to other members of his official staff. Do you see that?
I do.
Is that accurate?
Again, I'm not on the committee. I'm assuming they announced. I mean, they obviously announced it.
What is it? I'm just asking you, if you don't know, it's okay, but they say that they announced that they voted to establish this.
Again, they obviously announced it, or they wouldn't have said this. I mean, this in and of itself constitutes an announcement.
Okay. But this is a release from April the 12th.
Right. Again, I'm assuming they announced it. I had a lawyer, and he was handling that. So yeah, I'm not going to dispute that they announced they were going to form a ISC. I knew they were going to form an ISC. I assume they announced it.
Do we agree that this release from the House Committee on Ethics was approximately 3 weeks before the port's meeting in which it deliberated hiring you?
I don't know the date the ports met, so I can't answer that question.
You don't?
I don't know the date the Port of Victoria, the Port of Puerto Vaca meets.
Okay, you don't have any independent recall of wanting to attend that meeting on May the 7th?
There was a meeting after I left that I sent an email to Charles asking if he thought I should attend the meeting, but I don't remember the date of that meeting.
Okay. In any event, going back to the House Ethics Committee's release here, the second paragraph on the back page says, on December the 21st, 2018, the committee voted unanimously to expand the jurisdiction of the ISC's inquiry to include. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Is that true, that they did vote unanimously?
Again, I have no I was not present for the vote. I'm assuming the record will show that.
Okay. And then the areas that they're going to investigate are 4 different areas. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute, objection form. Are we talking about what's written down on the piece of paper, or are we talking about his personal knowledge of what the committee was doing? I'm confused.
Object to the sidebar.
Okay. Well, let me just objection form.
And Mr. Farenthold, were you aware then that the committee was investigating allegations of sexual harassment, discrimination, or retaliation by you or any person acting on your behalf toward any member of your staff while they were employed in your congressional office?
I was aware of the investigation, yes, sir.
And were you aware that the House Ethics Committee was investigating, secondly, allegations that your congressional staff may have used House resources, including staff time, to benefit your congressional campaigns?
Again, I was aware they were investigating. They're free to investigate anything they want.
And third, the House Ethics Committee was investigating allegations that you or any person working on your behalf may have required members of your staff to work on your campaign.
I'm aware of that, yes.
And fourth, the House Ethics Committee was investigating allegations that you may have made false statements or omissions in testimony to the committee.
I'm aware they're investigating that.
Is it true, sir, that you declined to appear for a voluntary interview with the House Ethics Committee?
I appeared for an interview with the House Ethics Committee.
When were you interviewed?
I believe that would have been in the fall of 2017.
If you don't know, it's okay, but why do you suppose the House Ethics Committee says that you declined to do so?
They wanted a second interview, and we were unable to reach an appropriate time to schedule that. They gave me less than a 1-week window they wanted to do that in, and I was unavailable during those time frames, and I chose to send them a letter stating that I'm trying to remember. I don't want to misstate here. Stating some facts that I wanted them to know, and wanting to continue to work with them on that.
And but your testimony today is that you did submit to an oral interview with the committee.
But they wanted a second one.
I appreciate
Yes.
that. How long was the first one?
It was over an hour.
And who was present?
The chairman and the ranking member of the committee and several staff members.
And that was in 2017, you think?
Yeah, I'm sure it was in 2017, yes, sir.
Before or after December the 1st, 2017?
I believe it was before.
Okay.
It was definitely before.
Okay. At the time you were interviewed by the House Ethics Committee, had it yet become part of the public domain that the settlement with Green had been effectuated with public funds?
Objection form. I don't understand the word public domain.
Had it been released in the...
I don't know.
When do you recollect that it became public, reported?
It was early December, I believe. It
Fair
came
enough.
out.
Fair enough. Okay.
So it would have been before.
Okay.
But they did have knowledge. The committee did have knowledge of the settlement.
And the funds from which it was paid?
That the funds any settlement is paid for is public knowledge. It's in the statute.
Huh?
It's the only funds that could be used to pay it.
All right. And is it true what they say here on March the 30th, 2018, that the committee told you that it was going to have a vote regarding the results of its investigation of you?
No, sir.
Objection form.
That's not what it says, and that's not what happened.
Okay,
No, sir.
just follow with me here, and if you think I've taken liberties with it, let me know. I'm on the paragraph, the third to the end of the paragraph on the second page, where it says, pursuant to Committee Rule 26, subsection C, on March the 30th, 2018, the ISC informed Representative Farenthold that it had scheduled a vote on a statement of alleged violation in this matter to occur on April the 11th.
Right. A statement of alleged violation is not a finding. It's more like a pleading or an indictment. It states what they're going to investigate and hold a hearing on.
So is this true what they say here?
It's true that they're said they were going to issue a statement of alleged violation, yes.
And is it true that less than a week after they announced that vote that you resigned?
Yes.
Did you resign for fear of what the committee was going to do?
No, sir.
Objection form. We're far afield now on any issue in this case.
Object to the sidebar. Are there any other errors or misstatements that you think appear in Exhibit number 6?
No, but again, I object to your characterization of a statement of alleged violations being a finding. It isn't a finding.
You said it's more like an indictment.
Or pleadings in a case. It tells you what you're going to have to defend.
And that's issued by the United States House of Representatives Committee on Ethics.
I believe it's an investigative subcommittee, not the entire committee.
So is it inaccurate here in this statement where it says the statement is from the Committee on Ethics?
This release was from the Committee on Ethics, but the paragraph that you're referring to clearly states the ISC that it was going to vote on. The ISC is not the entire Ethics Committee. It's a subcommittee of the Ethics Committee.
Let me just share this with you. The court reporter to your left is taking down what we're saying, and that there are going to be times today when you know my question before I've finished with it, and there'd be a temptation on my part to begin my next question because I know your answer, but she has to get things down, and so I will endeavor to let you finish your answer before I start my next question and ask if you'll pledge to likewise let me finish my question before you begin answering. Is that okay?
I'm sorry, I felt like you were finished.
Okay, well, you almost did it right there, but just be patient with me. Let me get through, and I'll try to do the same for you and let you get through before I jump in for the next question. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. As a former congressman, is it your thought that public funds should not be used for private purposes?
Yes.
Objection form.
Yes.
And likewise, as a congressman, your work should have been to benefit the public and not private interests, right?
Objection form.
Yes.
To your knowledge, at any time before you were hired by the port, had you reached any kind of rapprochement with Speaker Ryan?
I'm sorry, I don't know the definition of the word rapprochement.
Peacemaking.
I don't believe I was ever at odds with Speaker Ryan.
And what about with Governor Abbott?
I've supported Governor Abbott since he first ran for Attorney General. Our campaigns worked closely together. I felt like I had a good working relationship with, had a reasonable working relationship with the governor.
Have you ever been upset with either the Speaker or the Governor?
On policy matters, of course.
What about regarding you?
Well, obviously, when I felt like the letter that the governor sent to me was, I think, out of line, and as I indicated in my reply, in most cases, factually inaccurate.
Has the governor ever backed down from anything he said about you regarding the events post December 1st, 2017?
Objection form.
The only communication I've had with the governor is the letter that he sent me and the reply that I gave him.
I'm just trying to make sure you've never gotten an apology or a correction or any indication that the governor has withdrawn any of the concerns that he has stated about what you did.
I've not heard from the governor since that letter, which he sent to the wrong congressional office after I'd resigned from Congress, that I never actually received until months later. The first notification I got from it was from the press.
Do you fault him for that?
Again, as I indicated in my letter, I think most elected officials are suffer bad decisions that their staff may have made.
So you think you're blaming him, you're blaming his staff, not him?
I certainly don't think it's in the governor's day-to-day business to know my current address, but I think good staff work would have found it.
Did either the governor or the speaker ever change their minds about the fact that they felt that you should repay the taxpayers for the $84,000 that was used to settle the Green case?
Objection form.
Again, I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. Could you rephrase that question?
Sure. Have either one of them withdrawn their thought that you ought to fulfill the pledge you made to repay the taxpayers for the funds that were used to settle the Green lawsuit?
Objection form.
I can't legally repay the government to do that. I've been advised by multiple attorneys I cannot do that even if I wanted to. Now, that's not the answer to your question. The answer to your question is I'm not aware of where the governor or the speaker stand on that issue today.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. My question is, have you ever heard anything from the speaker or the governor that says they don't expect you to repay that money as you promised?
As I've said, I've not heard from the governor since that letter, and I have not spoken to the speaker since I left the House.
Let me ask you if Farenthold Exhibit 2 are the documents that you produced in compliance with the subpoena ducis tecum that was served upon you?
Yes.
All right. And these contain your statements made to the public and to news-gathering organizations with respect to the events post-dating December 1st, 2017. Is that right?
They're responsive to what's in your request ducis tecum, yes.
And they're true and correct copies of documents that you keep in your possession?
Yes.
All right. And you have faithfully complied with the subpoena and brought them with you today?
Yes.
All right. I'd like you to look at the the page that either you or your lawyers have marked BF3.
Yes.
And I guess it begins with BF2. What is this point-by-point history of the lawsuit? What is that?
This is something that my chief of staff, communications director, and I drafted as the news of the settlement became public, and this was the fact sheet that we were using to share with the media, basically our talking points, and we actually sent it. For instance, this one was sent, the copy you have was sent to Bob Jones, a talk show host in Corpus Christi.
Okay, great. Now, this is dated December 3rd, 2017, 2 days after it had been reported that public funds were used to pay the plaintiff in the Green case, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when I ask you about whether or not the speaker and the governor had ever taken back their statements that you ought to repay that money, you said you were not aware, correct?
That's correct.
And but you did, I think, tell me, I think in a non-responsive portion of your answer, that you couldn't pay it back. You wanted to pay it back, but you just couldn't.
That's correct.
Okay. Now,
and that I was advised by counsel not to pay it back.
Okay. Did counsel also advise you that you couldn't give that money to an appropriate nonprofit that helps victims of sexual harassment?
Objection form. How is this relevant to any issue in the case? Will help me with that.
Check to the Object to the
Well,
sidebar.
before you answer it, I think it's confusing, it's misleading, and I don't think it's relevant. It helped me understand why Mr. Farenthold's contribution to a charity has anything to do with the notice requirement under TOMA.
Object to the form. Object to the sidebar.
Okay, you can rephrase your question then. Because I'm confused. I don't think the question is within the scope of discovery. I don't think it's consistent with what the court has ordered. I'm concerned about that, counsel. I don't think the court has said that you can go into those types of matters. So if you can help me explain that to me, that would be helpful, and it'd be helpful for the record.
I'd like to answer this.
Hold on.
Let's get through this, and then you can.
Are you done with your statement?
Yes.
Okay, let me object to the sidebar and ask counsel to please confine the remarks to objections to form or instructions to the witness not to answer questions that call for privilege.
Okay,
now,
and I appreciate that, John, but I also have a right to object when you're now touching upon the protective order that was issued. I'm allowed to do that. And I'm asking you specifically, if there's a protective order that prevents you from going into these things, I have a right to ask why you're going into it in violation of the protective order. That's the reason why I was asking.
Object to the sidebar. Mr. Farenthold, you say in this public statement that if they won't take your money to repay the taxpayers for the cost of the settlement, you say here that you're prepared to donate that amount to an appropriate charity that assists victims of sexual harassment. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Have you done that?
No, sir.
Why haven't you fulfilled that promise?
I've been advised. I've been advised by counsel not to do that because there's legislation pending in Congress right now that would claw back those funds from either my retirement or Social Security. Until the revamp of the CAA has been done, I've been advised not to do that for being in jeopardy of having to repay it twice.
So your concern was you might have to pay the $84,000 twice, once back to the taxpayers and also to a nonprofit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's your best explanation for why you've not repaid the taxpayers or a nonprofit that supports
No, sir.
victims of sexual harassment?
No, sir, that's not correct. I've not repaid the taxpayer because I have been advised, and upon reading the statute, I believe it would be illegal for me to pay back the government for that. The Congressional Accountability Act states that only appropriated funds under that act can be used to settle a lawsuit under that act. So it would be illegal for me to do so. I've not repaid the charity or not donated to charity because there are several pieces of legislation pending that would attempt to claw that back through retirement funds or Social Security or other means.
Is that one of the reasons why you declined the governor's request that you reimburse the Texas taxpayers for a special election made necessary because of your resignation in April of this year?
No, sir.
Form?
No, sir.
Okay. There's a different reason that you declined that?
Never in the history of elections has somebody who resigned office been asked to do that. I didn't call the special election, as I stated in that letter. The governor called the special election. In fact, I was considering resigning earlier, but waited until after April 1st, where it was the governor's discretion to call a special election. Had I chosen to resign before April 1st, there would have been a mandatory special election. I did it in an attempt to save the taxpayers and the political parties money by not creating the necessity for a special election.
Let me object to the responsiveness. I'm just trying to...
Sir, you asked me why, and I'm answering why.
Let me object to the non-responsive answer. Let me just ask it in this way. One of the motivating factors for your turning the governor down was not your fear of paying the money back twice. It wasn't the clawback issue that motivated you to turn down the governor's request that you reimburse the Texas taxpayers for the special election.
No, sir. The money The argument that I would give it back to the taxpayers would be the United States taxpayer. The county taxpayers, different group of taxpayers for the special election. I would have been depriving the other Americans. Again, the idea that somebody who resigns office should have to pay for their replacement election is ludicrous.
So I'm right in saying it did not motivate you, was not a motivating factor of yours when you turned the governor down, that you were worried about having the money clawed back?
Objection form.
I believe I've already answered that, sir. And forgive me, I might be dense, maybe I ask a double negative. Is that right? It was not, that did not motivate you?
It certainly was not one of the primary factors. Whether it was part of my thought process or not at the time, I don't recall.
All right. Look at page 18, if you don't mind, in Bates BF 18. In looking through these emails, Mr. Farenthold, it appears that the attachments have been stripped from the emails, and I'd like you to confirm that the documents you brought with you have their attachments to the emails stripped here.
My attorney printed them out. The PDF files I provided him had the attachments. Whether they were given to my attorney. Whether or not they were printed out, I don't know.
Do we agree, though, that these emails reference attachments that are not included in this?
I have not gone through what he's printed out. I only provided him the electronic copies, so I can't answer that question.
Fair enough. If you don't mind, look at Bates number 19. And when you're there, let me know.
Okay.
It appears to me there's an email that says Charles, attached is the revised contract.
Okay, though that's not an attachment from me. That's from Charles's attorney. So that attachment, I don't know if I would have. I don't know if Charles sent me that attachment or not.
But your thought is that when you gave them to counsel, your counsel, Mr. Dulski, they had contained all of the attachments to the emails that came into your box and out of your box.
That is correct.
Okay.
If they're not here, I'm sure he'll be happy to print them for you.
Fair enough. Thank you for that.
Yeah, let me, on the record, if we didn't print them, that was just an oversight. I'll make sure they get printed and get them and produced to you.
And I appreciate that. Let's turn to page 89 of the documents that you brought in compliance with the subpoena and ask you what that is.
That is the job description for the legislative liaison for the Calhoun County Port Authority.
When were you first provided that?
I believe in my first meeting with Charles, which would have been in mid-May.
Were you provided this before or after you were hired?
I believe it was contemporaneously with being hired.
Had you guys discussed the contents of this before the day you were hired?
I don't believe so. I mean, the discussions we had were relatively broad. What they told me they wanted me to do was to get the funding for their jetty repairs taken care of. That was my number one goal, and that's what I should be focused on.
Well, if I read this two-page job description, I don't see anything about the jetties here. Is there anything in this job description that describes that precise project?
Coordinating activities with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, including obtaining direction on attainment of identified goals and policy recommendations, I think would be one of them. Okay. I think CPA's priorities in driving their message to the Army Corps of Engineers and members of the government, media, and the public would be there. Research and drafting of legislation. I think that all of those would be directly related to legislative goal of getting the law changed where the government share of funding the jetty repair that the Army Corps of Engineers screwed up when they built at 100%.
Does this two-page description on BF 89 and 90 in exhibit number 2 accurately reflect the job duties of the job that were discussed with you before you were hired?
Again, I think this is substantially broader than what our discussions were.
But is this the job description that now covers the job that you have?
Again, I've been directed to focus 100% on, I wouldn't say 100%, the vast majority of my time on the jetties issue. And I think it talks about dealing with the media and the public. I've also been instructed not to interact with the media.
Okay, let me object to a non-responsive answer. I'm just asking, is this the only job description that we have for the job that you now have?
I think there have been some verbal instructions that modify and supplement this.
Are they documented in any way?
No, sir.
Okay. And are these like verbal?
I speak on the phone every week with Charles, and we go over what I'm doing, and he tells me, that's good, or you need to focus on this.
Who prepared this job description?
I have no idea.
Who gave it to you?
Charles Houseman.
In person?
I believe so, yes.
Did y'all go over the job duties?
I read it. I mean, we didn't really discuss it.
Okay. Was there any disagreement about any of these items that are in there? Okay. So is this a true and correct copy of the job description for legislative liaison that was handed you by the port?
Yes.
Okay. And if I'm hearing you right, and you correct me if I'm wrong, even though it has all of these essential responsibilities, you've verbally been instructed to basically do only one thing, which is work on the jetties.
I think I corrected myself and said focus primarily on the jetties program.
What else were you supposed to focus on beside the jetties?
That was the number one issue. They've also got a widening and deepening project that's a long-term project. There's also some environmental concerns with the erosion of a beach south of the port that could be remedied by some Corps of Engineers actions. There are some issues with Pass Cavallo that could also help mitigate some of the problems with the jetties. I'm also on the lookout for potential, and probably not listed in here, as possible business development opportunities for the port as well.
You mentioned, I thought a moment ago, you were given a verbal, and if I heard this wrong, you share with me that you were you told not to interact with the public in some way? Or did
I was told not to interact with the media.
Not to interact with the media.
And that's primarily because of this litigation.
When were you first given the directive not to be interacting with members of the media?
It was very shortly after my hiring, a couple weeks.
Okay. All right. And what is the origin, or let me ask you this, why do you call the local daily newspaper in Corpus Christi the Scrawler Times?
I've been calling it that since, actually, Scrawler Grimes. It's a slang term that other media had been using to refer to it since I was a teenager.
Let me object to the responsiveness. My question is, why do you call them that?
Because that's what I've called them for years.
What does it mean to you to call them?
It's a derogatory term.
But in what sense? Tell me more about it. What's derogatory?
I just wanted to object on the basis of the protective order, which limits the scope of the deposition to information relating to whether the hiring of Mr. Farenthold is of special interest to the public. I don't see how this line of questioning or any line of questioning goes there. So I don't know how you want to handle that. Do we need to go off the record? Do we need to call the judge? What do we need to do to get this back on track?
Let me object to the sidebar. It's derogatory, you said.
Yes.
In what sense?
Do we need to stop the deposition? I've asked you a question.
No, we're not going off the record. Let me object to the sidebar. What's derogatory about it?
Well, wait a minute. Objection form, if your question's outside the protective order and he's not required to answer it, then at this point, he probably shouldn't answer, and we should go call the court on it and make sure that your questions, because we want to make sure your questions are within the four corners of his order. I'm sure you don't want to violate that. So I think the objection he has and the objection I have is your question about his meaning or his intent of those statements don't go to any issue that the judge has authorized questioning on. Can you explain why it does?
Object to the sidebar. Your lawyer can instruct you not to answer if he pleases, but I'm going to get you to elaborate on the question. Is that the term is meant in a derogatory manner?
That's correct. Since I was 15, I was in competing media. I think it actually originated from a play at the summer melodramas of the Corpus Christi Harbor Playhouse, and it's a moniker that has stuck.
When you used the term to describe that paper, did you mean it in a derogatory manner?
Objection, relevance, protective order.
I'm not a fan of the Caller Times, but I don't necessarily I'm not sure derogatory would be the right word to describe how I used it.
And it's okay, you being a legislative liaison, but I'm just asking you, your relationship is one that with the Caller Times you described. Do you have that same relationship, say, with the Victoria Advocate?
I didn't grow up with that paper. I don't have a particular opinion of that paper.
What about the Port Lavaca Wave?
Again, I didn't grow up with that paper. We had good relations when I was in Congress, and I've talked to him once or twice since.
In the Houston Chronicle, a fan of them?
Objection form.
Again, I'm not a fan of the media in general right now. If you were to ask me what some of my more favorite newspapers are, I think I would include the Chronicle in there.
If you'll go to page 113, and let me know when you're at BF 113.
I'm there.
Just so we understand, these are statements that you made to members of the public about the events that happened after December 1st, 2017, when it was made public that taxpayers' funds had been used to settle the Green case, right?
Yes, Mr. Woodbright is a former reporter for the Caller Times who covered me.
Okay. And you engage in conversation with him. He's a member of the public, is he not?
He retired from the media, so he is a member of the public.
Perfect.
He's a friend, though.
He's friendly to you?
We're friends. We've gone out to have dinner together. I mean, we're social friends.
Thank you for that. And when you tell this member of the public, who is a friend, that the F-tards won, who are you referring to there?
Objection form.
The media.
Okay. And forgive me for being indiscreet by asking this question, but what does the term F-tards mean? What is it?
Objection form.
The word speaks for itself.
But what does it mean to you? I promise you, I don't know what this means.
It means F-tard.
Objection.
What would be a synonym that, in case the judge or the ladies and gentlemen of the jury have never heard this term before, what does it mean?
Ass.
Objection, relevance,
Okay.
protective order.
ASS?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay.
I guess it would be plural. ASSES.
Okay. All right. And if you don't mind moving to page 122, and let me know when you're there.
Okay.
That you reference in the days after it had become public that public funds were used to pay the Green settlement, that some members of your own party were turning on you.
I have a general belief that in Washington that we leave our wounded on the playing field, yes.
And when you said that to this member of the public, that the Republicans, members of your own party, were turning on you, who were you referring to?
Objection form.
There were a couple of people in the Republican Party who were threatening to come out and call for my immediate resignation.
And who were those Republicans?
I believe Mia Love, and there was one other one, and I don't remember who.
And Mia Love is a
Congresswoman.
Yeah, an African-American Congresswoman, Republican?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would also say some folks that had worked for me in the past were also turning on me. My former political consultant, Steve Ray, had gone to work for one of my opponents. So it wasn't, it's...
And if you'll move to page 131, and let me just ask you, who's Robbie Burge?
He was a campaign contributor in Victoria.
Do you know what his day job is?
He's a small business owner.
Know him as a person very active in the Victoria community?
Yes.
In a very sociable person?
Yes.
All right. Does he volunteer to you that he's been in listening to folks in Victoria, it's not going very well for you, Mr. Farenthold? Do you see where he tells you that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you speak with him on the phone about the public reaction to the knowledge that you had used taxpayer funds to settle the Green case?
Objection form. Don't answer that question. You can rephrase it. I think that misstates what his testimony is, and any answer at this point would be misleading.
I'm just trying to get you to tell me whether you had a phone conversation with Mr. Burge about what he was hearing in the community after it was known that taxpayers' funds paid the Green settlement.
Objection form.
Objection form.
I remember having a phone call with Mr. Burge. I do not remember the contents of that call.
Can you if you can't, it's okay, but do you recollect him telling you that that there's a public outcry because those funds were used in that manner?
I don't believe he said that, but I can't be positive.
In any event,
I'll be happy to expand upon that. The issue at this time was whether or not I was going to seek re-election, and I was trying to gauge whether what was happening with respect to the disclosure was going to, what effect that was going to have. I think it was not specifically on any issue in particular, but general what was going on.
But these strings of emails that we see here are all in the days following the revelation that taxpayers' funds had been used to pay the Green settlement, right?
I believe there was also a CNN report around that time as well that Ms. Green appeared on.
Okay. In any event, when you're getting this report from Robbie Burge, he's telling you it's not going so well what he's hearing in Victoria, and that your path to victory appears to be getting slimmer and slimmer.
Objection form.
I think that's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration. I believe the general message I got from, again, I can't specifically recall Mr. Burge's conversation, but a variety of conversations with supporters indicated that it would be a harder re-election should I choose to stay in the election.
But not to cut to the chase, but harder because of the events that happened around December the 1st, 2017.
I think for a variety of things that were going on.
But that would be number one, right?
Probably, yes.
Okay. And what we've been looking at in page 131 is not your notes about a phone call with Robbie Burge, but rather either a text or an email with
That's
him.
a text chain, yes, sir.
Text chain. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now, did you share with me a moment ago that your resignation a few days after the Ethics Committee released its intention to vote on the allegation, or vote to, let me rephrase that question. You told me it was in the nature of charges or an indictment and not a finding of wrongful conduct that the Ethics Committee was going to vote on.
No, sir.
You didn't tell me that?
No, sir. We were talking about the investigative subcommittee, not the ethics committee.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay. The subcommittee of the Ethics Committee, I thought you had told me that you did not resign out of any fear as to what the Ethics Committee subcommittee would do with respect to the allegations against you.
I don't believe I said that, no, sir.
So,
go ahead.
So let me ask it again. Was one of your motivations for resigning to avoid the vote by that body?
Objection, relevance, protective order.
I would say my primary motivation was the expense associated with defending it. I was informed by my ethics attorney it would cost between $300,000 and $500,000 to defend. That money I did not have in my campaign fund, and is twice what I would have made in Congress over a year.
Let me ask you one more time. Was one of the motivations for your resignation avoiding the House Ethics Committee subcommittee voting on the allegations involving you?
Objection, relevance, protective order.
Answer.
My primary motivation was the expense associated with defending an ethics investigation.
Let me object to the responsiveness. Now, you've told me that was one of your reasons. I just, either the fear of what they were going to do motivated you or not.
Sir, I've been dragged through the mud by the media on this enough. Quite frankly, I very much would have liked to get much more of my side of the story out, because I feel like the truth would have been on my side. However, I could not afford to do it. It wasn't worth the emotional stress on me and my family with what was going on in the media. But the truth is, I could have probably gone through it and would have liked to. My family couldn't have.
Let me object to the responsiveness. So did it play a role in your decision-making, fear of what the House Ethics Committee was going to do with the allegations that were being investigated by its subcommittee?
Objection, relevance, protective order.
Objection form, asked and answered.
It was not the primary consideration, but it was a consideration.
You have told members of the public that the House Ethics Committee and Subcommittee were looking to steamroll you.
Objection.
Is that right?
I believe the Ethics Committee is driven more by politics than by the facts. So I would say yes.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. You think constituents and members of the public would be interested in a sitting congressman who accuses the House Ethics Committee of looking to steamroll someone who's asking for a job as a lobbyist?
Objection, form.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
It's unusual to have a sitting member of Congress to accuse the House Ethics Committee of trying to steamroll.
I don't think it's unusual at all.
Has any other person being investigated by the House Ethics Committee ever accused the congressional committee or subcommittee of trying to steamroll a member of Congress?
I would assume so, but I couldn't cite any particular instance of it. And again, that was not a statement made to the media or to the public. It was made to a friend and supporter.
But in a communication that was with a member of the public?
It was with one person, yes, sir.
Yes. Well, who else did you tell that the House Ethics Committee was trying to steamroll you?
Objection form.
I have no idea if I told anybody else or if I told a dozen other people.
Can you see why the members of the public in Calhoun County would be interested in hiring, whether or not a person applying for a job as a lobbyist has accused those who he intends to lobby of steamrolling him?
Objection.
No, sir.
You don't think they'd have any interest in that?
I don't think it would be much interest, no.
In any event, the couple of hundred pages of emails, text messages, and other documents are your statements about that matter, right?
They're responsive to your request.
Thank you. Do you think the public has an interest in the right to expect members of Congress to honor their commitments to the taxpayers?
Objection form. Objection form. Relevance.
Of course.
Okay. And when you let me ask you this. You are acquainted with the mayor of Victoria, Paul Pulaski, are you not?
Yes.
And you assured him, did you not, and made a commitment to him as the mayor of Victoria, quote, I'm going to pay back the settlement amount. Is that right?
Objection form.
It was my intent at the time to pay it back until I was advised and researched on my own that it would be illegal to do that. I believe the taxpayers and the mayor would be more interested in my following the law.
Let me object to the responsiveness. I'm just trying to confirm that you made a commitment to Mayor Pulaski on December 4th, 2017. Despite my innocence, I'm going to pay back the settlement amount, unquote.
I said that, but again, if I commit to something and find out it's against the law, I'm going to not do it. I'm not going to break the law.
Who is Limbo?
He is a supporter he's a supporter up district. He's married to a friend of mine. He is a supporter of mine in Lockhart. Luling.
What's the name of this person?
Limbo Allen.
A-L-L-E-N?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, he wasn't in the directory of my phone, so it didn't pull up a name associated with his phone number.
No problem. But this member of the public has told you that he was proud of you for doing the right thing by paying the money back.
I think he'd be equally proud of me for obeying the law.
Let me object to the responsiveness. I'm just trying to get at what he's telling you in this text message.
Objection form.
You got to let me finish my question too.
Well, you're asking him what's the...
Stop. Please don't interrupt. I'm going to let you make your objection when I'm done. I promise.
You're asking what's been written, so, I mean, that's...
Object to the sidebar.
Okay.
where he says this is limbo. He says here he's proud of you for, quote, doing the right thing by paying the money back, unquote, right?
Objection.
That's what he said.
Okay. And sort of cutting to the chase, regardless of who's wrong and right on the illegal or not illegal, or giving to a charity, not giving to a charity, whatever. Those are issues that have been debated vigorously in public ways among those who have an interest in that subject.
Objection for.
I would disagree with that completely. It's barely ever reported in any of the stories that it would be illegal for me to repay it, or that I would be in jeopardy of having to repay it twice if I were in charity. I think you'll find that in very few of the news reports. I would not say it's been vigorously publicly debated.
Let me object to the non-responsiveness. I'm just talking about the subject matter of this payment and the way it was made, and the events that followed, such as your commitment to pay the money back to the taxpayers, or to pay it back to a nonprofit, or your communications with the governor and the speaker. These are all matters that have been debated vigorously among social media, the press, and bloggers over the last several months, right?
Objection form.
Objection form.
I don't know, because I've, for the most part, quit reading social media and blogs. And I can tell you from what few news reports that I actually have read, I don't believe a debate indicates that both sides of the issue are presented, and so no.
But people are interested in this subject, aren't they?
Objection form.
Objection form.
I think there is a small subset of trolls on the internet and folks who are attempting to score cheap political points to capitalize on this.
Do you think that the district court is a troll for asking whether it should be of concern to the public in Calhoun County whether public funds are used for private purposes?
Objection form.
Objection form.
I don't think asking the question is a debate, so no. I think anybody's entitled to ask a question, and in the instances where it's appropriate for me to answer, I will answer. I also want to put on the record that I'm neither confirming nor denying that the amount in question is $84,000. It's settlement money. The settlement agreement specifically prohibits me from disclosing the amount of the settlement, whether it was $1 or $100 million.
And if you don't mind looking at BF 143 and 144, and let me know when you're there. What is that?
That is the form letter that my office sent out to anybody who wrote in about the issue.
How many of them got sent out?
I don't know.
Who would be the best person to ask that question?
I don't believe anybody would know now because the system is offline. I have a backup of it, but I don't have the software to determine who it was sent to. So I have no idea how many people, if any, this was sent to. I got a copy of all the form letters we sent out. This was in it, and it was responsive.
Right, and I'm not beating you up over your memory, but who would be the person that would have the most knowledge about how many members of the public you sent that letter to?
There would not be one single person. It would be the people who held the office of legislative correspondent in my office at the time this letter was active. So since the OCE opinion, since I'd have to read the letter to estimate what the date of was it, but it would be the legislative correspondent in my office. But I doubt they would remember those particular numbers either without access to the program. Now, I did give access to my form letters to Michael Cloud, but I did not give him the contact list, so he wouldn't have the number either, I don't think.
But can we be confident that this letter that you sent out to members of the public who were asking about these events were sent out after it broke that the settlement funds were paid from public funds?
Objection form.
Objection form. Can you read back the question real quick?
But can we be confident that this letter that you sent out to members of the public who were asking about these events were sent out after it broke that the settlement funds were paid from public funds?
Yes, because it says repayment of the funds. So the body of the letter suggests that. So
Fair enough.
I'm relatively confident.
And it looks to me like the pages starting with page 145 are basic social media posts regarding you in the wake of these events.
You asked for all communications with the public. I gave you everything we posted to Twitter and Facebook during the time period in question. There are literally thousands of emails and stuff that I went through. I just, in the amount of time we had, I didn't have time to cull what was relevant and not relevant from social media. I did look at my Instagram account, but there was nothing posted that was relevant on Instagram.
And have you complied with the subpoena and covered Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter?
Yes.
And are those the only social media platforms that you participate in?
Yeah, there was also YouTube, and I believe we provided you a couple of videos, some of which were on YouTube, some of which were not. There were things we helped local TV stations produce. I had a LinkedIn account, but nothing, I don't ever post to that. Those are all the social media accounts that I'm active on.
And when you mentioned the...
or was active on, I'm not active on them anymore. I want to clarify that answer.
Okay. And let me just ask you this. In terms of the... Exhibit number 2, page 145 to 219 are the ones that have to do with social media, as opposed to emails, text messages, and press releases.
That is, what's the final page number?
You can look as well as I can, but I think it's 219, is it not?
Yes, that appears to be the social media accounts. There were two, I have three. Okay, so there are 3 Facebook accounts. My campaign account, Elect Blake, the Farenthold, the official, and then, or Congressman Farenthold, the official, and then a personal. I quit using my personal my second year of Congress, so there was nothing to produce there. Mm-hmm. Twitter, there was an Elect and a official. I think I also have a personal YouTube, but I haven't posted anything on that since I was elected to Congress, I don't think.
I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but describe, if you will, the videos that are on the USB drive that the court reporter has marked as Exhibit 1.
There is a video that was posted to Facebook of a conference call with your congressman that was done in early December. That was an hour long. It was focused primarily on Hurricane Harvey relief, but I vaguely recall somebody may have asked something about that, so I produced it. There ought to be the announcement that I will not run again, and then there is a video out there that I do not have a copy of, or that of my resignation. I searched for that but could not find it. I believe that that may have been on the C drive of my communications director, and all I backed up when I left was the shared hard drive. There is also a 3 or 4 videos of me doing interviews with local TV stations. The way we would do that is they would call, we'd put them on speakerphone and ask questions. I would answer those questions on a video camera, and we would email them the high-res video of me answering the questions. So we basically taped my end of the interview, and they spliced it together to form their final story.
Okay. Sort of go in chronological order with these exhibits. I'm going to start with the exhibit 24.
I don't have, all I have is exhibit 2.
No, you don't have it yet. I'm going to hand you it.
I tell you, if we're going to shift gears, can I have just like 3 minutes to go to the bathroom?
You can have more than that, as much as anybody needs. We can
Okay.
go off the record.
Okay, yeah.
Time off record 12:07.
Thanks, I was done.
This is the start of tape 2, time on record 12:26.
Forgive me for asking this, but are you aware that Governor Abbott has said that you are a disgraced former congressman?
A lot of people have said that,
And
but I was not specifically aware the governor had said that.
have any of the folks who have had that opinion, right or wrong, withdrawn it or retracted their view that you are a disgraced former congressman?
Objection form.
I've just seen it in print occasionally. I don't read my press very much anymore.
Have any of them, to your knowledge, withdrawn that characterization?
I wouldn't know.
Objection form.
And I'm going to run through some exhibits with you. Let me just give you all of them. We'll go in order that they appear there, starting with number 24.
Do you have an extra copy? We can look at.
You can. I'm happy for you to look over my shoulder. I do have one in a notebook here.
Are those? Let's just. Let me go make copies of those real quick.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
Sure.
If you don't mind, it'll take me
We can go off the record
2 or 3 minutes.
to accomplish
Off
that.
record at 12:27. Back on record at 1:09.
There we
You
go.
want me to have this one?
Yeah, that's the one he gave you. Take the original sticker off.
Okay. They're all the same. What does it matter?
That one is for Bill's. That was Bill's.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
So there's 2 stacks. You got 2 stacks. You got this one, which is in front of him now.
Okay.
The second stack is right here.
Okay.
That's Jones. Okay.
All set.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, if I could. Do you consider Speaker Paul Ryan to be in the deep state?
Objection form.
What do you mean by the deep state?
The deep state you referred to in your letter to Governor Abbott when you were talking about the deep state.
No.
Okay. Do you consider Governor Abbott himself to be part of the deep state?
Objection form, relevant.
No.
Okay. Or the Port Lavaca Wave?
No.
Or the Victoria Advocate?
No.
Okay. I'm going to go through these series of exhibits with you, and I'm going to try to go in chronological order of dates that start from December 1st, 2017, and running through May 2nd, 2018. And I will ask you if you'll first look at Exhibit 24, and I will ask you if anything's been reported here that you think is not truthful or inaccurate.
This stands for itself. What I think about it doesn't. What possible relevance could that have?
Let me object to the.
Okay, I'm going to object to the question myself. I mean, this has zero relevance.
Let me.
Objection form.
And I join that objection form. I just need to tell me factually. We agree that Exhibit 24 is an article in the Texas Tribune about you and the events surrounding it becoming public knowledge that taxpayers' funds had been used to fund the green settlement. Right?
So,
right?
I cannot answer that question based on the confidentiality agreement in the green settlement, which prohibits me from commenting on the amount of the settlement or anything contained in the settlement.
Let me object to the non-responsive. I'm only asking you to...
Would one of my lawyers please say that the judge specifically... Okay.
Like, we've objected.
Yeah.
Okay, as to form. Okay, let's let him ask.
I am personally...
Okay, can I take a quick break?
Yeah.
No, I want him to finish this answer. I don't want him to take a break in the middle of the answer. I want you to continue what you're
I haven't done answered him.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Now you can go visit with him.
Off record at 112. Back on record at 1:15.
Mr. Farenthold, I will not ask you any more to confirm or deny that they got the amount of money right in this article, whether it's 84,000 or some other number. But I will ask you, do you deny that you have publicly committed to paying back $84,000 in connection with that settlement of the green litigation?
Objection form.
I committed to paying it back before I knew it would be illegal to do so.
Right, but do you deny specifically committing to paying back the $84,000 number?
I did not give a number.
You did not? You think you did not?
I have not ever given a number.
Okay. So other than you confirming the not wanting to address the amount of the settlement here in the report, do they have any of their facts wrong here?
Objection form.
Take me a while to read it.
And objection to the extent you're asking for the terms and conditions of any settlement agreement. I'm instructed not to answer those.
Yeah, I don't want you to talk about the. I don't want you talking about the settlement you made with Green.
So I'm not commenting at all on the first paragraph of this story.
I don't need you to comment on that paragraph.
Yeah.
But you were...
Then please let me read it.
Objection form, the judge's order says, questions about the green lawsuit and/or any settlement agreements are not to be inquired into.
Is your question, John, a question regarding the green lawsuit and/or the settlement agreements?
There's no question on the table. He asked to be able to finish reading the document,
Okay.
so I'm waiting to ask my next question when he's finished.
Yes, enter.
Come on in.
How many copies of this did you need? Who's at the third? Let me check.
Okay, so what's your question?
Okay, my next question is, were you aware at the time this story broke that Michael Cloud, who currently serves as a congressman, your successor, had said that if these revelations were true, then it was, quote, a gross betrayal of the public trust, unquote.
Objection form.
I have no idea what Michael Cloud may or may not have said. He never said that to me.
Is today the first time you were aware that Congressman Cloud had said that if it were true that taxpayers' funds were used to fund the Green settlement, that it was a gross betrayal of the public trust?
This is the first time I've read this story.
Be object to the non-responsiveness. I'm asking you, until today, were you aware that Congressman Cloud, who currently succeeds you in Congress and who you presumably would be lobbying, had said that if it were true that you had used, or that public funds had been used to fund the Green settlement, that it was a, quote, gross betrayal of the public trust, unquote?
Objection form.
This is the first I've seen of that quote, and I'm sure if Michael knew all the underlying facts, he would very likely have a different opinion.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. Is this, do we agree this article is about the revelation regarding the report that public funds were used to settle the Green claim?
Objection form.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you are asking. The article is the article. The article's the article.
I didn't ask you if the article was the article. I said, can you confirm that this is one of the accounts of the events that became known on December 1st, 2017?
I didn't read it at the time. This is the first I've seen it, so I can't answer that question.
And neither you nor your staff showed it to you?
No.
Okay. Let's move then to other accounts.
Now, I will clarify, it probably showed up in my Google alerts, but I wasn't reading negative press at the advice of my staff.
Okay. All right. You're not saying that the public wasn't interested in it. What I hear you saying is that you were not paying attention to it, right?
This is the Texas Tribune. The public's not interested in anything they publish.
Tell me more about that.
It's a known liberal publication. Abby Livingston, I felt like I never got a fair shake from Abby Livingston, and I would say I didn't get a fair shake from Abby Livingston in 80% of what she published.
And who's Abby Livingston?
She is the Texas Tribune Washington reporter.
Is she who wrote that story?
I don't know. I'm assuming so. Yes.
Okay. So getting back to my original question, your staff kept you from reading this kind of story.
They said it would not be worth reading.
Okay. Did they tell you the same thing about exhibit number 5?
Again, they didn't specifically refer to any story. I don't even know what New York Magazine is.
Look at the second page of Exhibit 5, if you don't mind. Who are the people pictured in the photograph on the second page of Exhibit 5?
That would be me, 2 attendees at a fundraiser for a charity, the women, and the gentleman there was a friend at the time who is married to person who worked on my campaign in my official office.
Right, but who are they? I can see you on the right. Who's the woman next to you on your right?
I do not know her name.
Okay, what about the gentleman to her right?
His name is Eric Herman.
Herman?
Eric Herman, yes.
And where does he live?
He's in Corpus Christi.
Okay, and the woman to his right?
Don't know. The photographer asked us to pose for a picture at a charity fundraiser.
And for which nonprofit?
There were a variety of nonprofits. It was a birthday party that a gentleman named Terry Willingham did annually. There was a $25 cover charge, which was donated to the nonprofits of Mr. Willingham's choosing.
Who was the host of the party?
Mr. Willingham.
And where was the party?
It was downtown Corpus Christi at, I believe the venue is known as Area.
And it was not a fundraiser for you?
No. This was before I even considered running for Congress.
So that was my next question. When did this picture get taken?
It was before I even decided to run for Congress.
No, but I know that, but when?
It was, I don't remember the date.
But was it a year before? 6 months?
I think it was around 4 to 6 months.
Before you ran?
before I filed to run.
Before you filed to run. Thank you for that.
And before I decided, I even had an inkling of running.
Okay, fair enough. Look at the next exhibit 12. Can you confirm that this is your press release that you released after it had been reported that taxpayers' funds were used to pay Ms. Green?
Yes.
And can you confirm that Exhibit 8 is an editorial from the Victoria Advocate asking you to resign now?
I can't confirm it. I didn't write it, and I didn't see it when it was published. Your client would be the one to confirm the authenticity of that.
So am I right, Mr. Farenthold, that you've not seen that until today, the call for your resignation on December the 16th, 2017?
I don't recall it. I don't recall reading it.
Don't have any memory of it?
Being in the form, asked and answered.
Being in the Advocate, it is something I might have read, but I have no specific recollection of reading it.
Okay. Move to Exhibit 9, if you don't mind. Can you confirm this story is from one of the local newspapers, the Victoria Advocate, regarding your resignation in April of this year?
No, sir, I can't.
Why not?
Because I didn't see it when it was published, and all I have to go for is what you put in front of me.
Well, your words are here, and I need the jury and the judge to make sure that they are in fact your words. So why don't we?
You didn't ask me as to the accuracy of the quotes.
Well, you're going to have to let me finish my question.
Okay.
Looking at it again, is it accurate the way that the Advocate has portrayed the words that you spoke to its reporter regarding your resignation from Congress?
Objection form.
I believe the quotes that are in there were taken from a video that I produced for you when I announced I wasn't going to run again. You can compare them to the video to see if they're accurate. I do not remember my exact words on that video.
Well, but the judge and jury need your
Objection to the sidebar.
I just need you to tell me, do you stand by these words here that are attributed to you on the top of page 2 of exhibit number 9?
Objection form.
Objection form. Which specific words are you talking about?
Object to the sidebar.
So the quotes appear similar to, I can't, again, without reviewing the video, they look and are in the spirit of what was said in the video. It'd be easy enough to compare them to what's in the video. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact words I used.
Were you aware that the Republican chair of the National Republican Congressional Committee had called upon you to pay back the $84,000 of taxpayers' money that was used as a settlement?
Yes.
Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that Beck Brune was one of the people, turning to the bottom of the page, he was one of the candidates in the special election, was he not?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that Mr. Brune had called upon you to honor the promise to pay back the $84,000 owed to taxpayers?
Again, a promise made before I knew it was illegal to repay it. And yes, I was aware he made that statement.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. Thank you.
And again, the amount of the settlement and not $84,000. Again, I'm not confirming or denying the $84,000, the amount of the settlement. I think you'll find none of my statements have referred to a specific dollar amount, as I am prohibited by the settlement agreement from confirming or denying whether $84,000 was the amount of the settlement.
Turning then to exhibit number 6. Pardon me, I can't read my own writing. I apologize about that. 26. Should be the next one in the sequence that you have before you. Is it fair to say that the photograph is what's been called in the press reports the ducky pajamas photograph has been widely circulated and in the public eye for some years?
Objection form.
It was out in my first election. I mean, it was an issue in the first campaign election, so it's been out since before I served in Congress.
Right, but it's been continually in the public eye since then.
Objection form.
Objection form.
It's been posted by trolls from time to time.
And have you shared with the Houston Chronicle that a week doesn't go by that there's not some reference to that photograph?
Again, the trolls post it regularly.
No, but my question is more limited. That do you in fact recall telling the Houston Chronicle that a week doesn't go by that something
It
doesn't?
sounds like something I would have said.
Okay. The next date in the chronology is Exhibit 6, and that's the Ethics Committee's press release concerning you on April the 12th, right?
Yet to. Yes.
Okay. And what's next in your sequence?
Exhibit 6.
Okay. And after 6?
It originally said 1, now says 27.
Okay. Thank you for that. And what's the date of that exhibit?
Exhibit 27, that would be April 25th.
Yes, and let me ask you this. Do you...
So we're skipping 6? I'm sorry.
I think we fully covered 6, have we not?
Beginning of the
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, turning to Exhibit 27, I think, do you have a hostile relationship with this reporter, Patrick Svitek?
Don't know who he is.
How did you learn that Governor Abbott was expecting you to pay back the taxpayers of Texas for the cost of the special election to fill your position? When did you first learn the governor was expecting you to do that?
Objection form.
When I received an email from my former chief of staff containing a press inquiry from the Houston Chronicle.
Was it reported to you that the governor had said these words that are on the second page in quotes? While you've publicly offered to reimburse the $84,000 in taxpayer funds you wrongly used to settle a sexual harassment claim, there's no legal recourse requiring you to give that money back to Congress, Abbott wrote. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did your staff people inform you that's what the governor had said?
Objection form.
The only thing I know the governor had said is what is in the letter that he sent to me.
Well, did the letter he sent to you indicate that he expected you to pay the $84,000 to cover the cost of that election?
Objection form.
Again, I think this inaccurately reports that I promised to pay back $84,000 when in fact my promise was to pay back the settlement amount made before I became aware that it would be illegal to do so.
In any event, this story is about that topic of the governor's call on you to repay the taxpayers for the cost of the special election.
Objection form.
We agree that's the same.
If you say so, if you'd like me to read it, I will.
I thought you just did.
I glanced at it, I didn't read it. I looked at the author and looked at the amount and stopped
Well, can you
reading.
tell from the headline that's what it's about?
Objection form.
That's what it purports to be about.
Okay, all right. And I'm not trying to hurry you through any of these exhibits, but I'm just trying to get through them. So I'm not. If you want to take more time to read them, I want you to have that time. If you don't mind going to Exhibit 13.
Yes.
Can you see that this is a story in USA Today about Governor Abbott's request that you pay the cost of the special election to replace you?
Yes.
And I'd like you to go to the last paragraph in quotes that quotes you. USA Today quotes you as saying, "I had no idea how to run a congressional office, and as a result, I'd allowed a workplace culture to take root in my office that was too permissive and undecidedly unprofessional. It accommodated destructive gossip, offhand comments, off-color jokes, and behavior that in general was less than professional," unquote. Are those your words?
No, sir, you misread it.
Does the last paragraph of Exhibit 13 that's in quotes here, are those your words?
I believe so, but it's not the entirety of the statement. The statement that was released went on to say to the effect that nothing that happened in my office was illegal or rose to the legal definition of sexual harassment. So while those are my words, it's not the entirety of the statement that I made.
Was Governor Abbott correct in his letter to you, in your view, that there was no legal recourse requiring you to give the money back to Congress? Isn't that your position too?
My position is that it would be illegal for me to do so. So I think that's consistent.
Okay.
That being said, there is pending legislation that would claw it back from my Social Security or rather meager congressional retirement account.
Let me ask this. Forget about your official office or your official duties. As part of the money that was paid to Ms. Green, were you given a personal release
Objection form that goes to the settlement.
from her?
Are you asking me about the terms and conditions of the settlement agreement?
Not with the government. I'm only asking this narrow question of whether you personally obtained a benefit of that settlement by getting a release from Ms. Green.
We're going to object to form, object to relevance. The judge's order specifically says questions about the Green lawsuit or any settlement agreements are not to be inquired into. We've given you a lot of latitude.
I appreciate it. You've told him not to answer, right? I just want to move on.
Nobody's told me not to answer. I'm bound by a confidentiality agreement not to discuss the terms of the agreement, which is my understanding protected by an order from the court.
So I'm not instructing him not to answer. We're hoping that you would withdraw your question and move on.
I just need him to tell me that he doesn't want to answer it because of that reason, and I'm not going to go any further with it today. Did he tell me he
I'm
wanted to
prohibited from answering it by the terms of the settlement agreement,
Okay.
and believe you cannot ask me that based on the protective order.
And I'm not going to get in an argument with you on that. That's okay. Moving to Exhibit 7, were you made aware that the Houston Chronicle had called upon you to pay back that $84,000 used to settle the Green case?
Objection form.
Again, without confirming or denying the amount, there were numerous media outlets and folks that asked that I repay the settlement.
Sure.
And again, at the time, we were looking for a way to do that. I met with Speaker Ryan to talk about a way to do that. I met with the chairman of the House Administration Committee about a way to do that. And eventually, we all came to the conclusion that I don't know what conclusions other people came to, but my legal team came to the conclusion and showed me the statute, and I agreed with them that it would be illegal to do it and potentially put me in jeopardy of having to repay it twice if I pursued other options.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. This subject, the subject of repaying or not repaying, that's something that you said you discussed with Speaker Ryan, right?
I asked him how to repay it.
No, I'm just asking you from the people that you interacted with on this subject. The Speaker was one of them.
Yes.
Members of the public were another.
Objection form.
Because it's in the stack of subpoenaed materials.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And the press, right?
Yeah, I was very limited in what I could comment to the press about based on the settlement agreement. And again, I have done my best not to confirm or deny any amount.
Let me ask you this. If you are not supposed to talk about the Green case because of your confidentiality agreement, then why did you share with Governor Abbott, quote, that you wanted to make it perfectly clear there were never any allegations that I ever touched anyone, unquote?
Objection form.
Those are in the pleadings that are part of the public record.
So what's meant there is that there's nothing about that in any of the documents that are in the public record about the Green case. That's what you meant by that.
Objection form.
That she never alleged in anything she filed with the court that I ever touched her.
In the public record.
Objection form.
There are no, not to my knowledge, there are no non-public records.
I thought you said the whole settlement process and everything y'all did in private is what you're not supposed to talk about.
Objection form.
Again, you're asking me to go into the Green case. That comment was based on the pleadings in Ms. Green's that can be found on the internet.
That's my point. That's what I'm trying to get to the judge to understand. You are relying solely upon what was in the public record in the Green case in saying that.
I can neither confirm nor deny anything that happened outside the public record on that.
Well, but you don't say what's public and private. You just make a blanket statement that there were never any allegations that you touched anyone. You could not confirm or deny if that allegation was made outside the pleadings, could you?
Objection form.
Or at a mediation, could you?
I'm not gonna answer that. If I will tell you that why wouldn't she plead it if it happened? It would have been her best pleading. You're a plaintiff's attorney. It would be the most salacious of the claims. If it happened, I believe she would have pled it without confirming or denying anything that happened in confidence.
But you're not violating any confidentiality agreement by relying on anything that was said in confidential mediation or other.
That statement was not based on anything that was said privately.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you for that.
Was or was not said.
Thank you for that. And let's move to exhibit number 11. This is the letter that you posted to your website and sent to Governor Abbott, right?
Yes. Apparently I misspelled his first name.
Now, I was going to say you faulted the governor for sending it to to the wrong office, right?
I misspelled his name.
Okay, and in
I take full responsibility for that.
no, I'm not beating you or the governor up. I'm just saying you say he sent it to the wrong office and you misspelled his first name, right? Okay. What would you call this issue where he says you did something wrong and you say you didn't in using taxpayers' money to pay taxpayers' funds to pay Ms. Green?
Objection 4.
I believe the governor was not aware that under the law, the only funds that could be used to settle a lawsuit against a congressional office of this type were funds allocated or appropriated for that process and approved by the Office of Compliance.
No, let me object to the responsiveness. I'm not arguing the point of whether you're right or wrong or he's right. I'm talking about what would you call this? Would you call it a disagreement, a feud, a spat? What would you call it, this argument that you say, Governor Abbott, it's simply not true that I wrongfully used taxpayers' funds?
I believe the governor didn't have all the facts.
But what I'm saying, what do you call it, a disagreement?
No, I call it me correcting him on the facts. I believe he was unaware of.
You disagreed with his assertion that you acted wrongfully.
Objection 4.
Right?
And I pointed out under the law why I did not. I was giving him the facts so he would be aware of his, what I believe to be, mistaken impression.
Right, and I'm not praising, condemning, or judging in any way, but you and he had a disagreement on whether or not you acted wrongfully in paying that money.
Objection 4.
I don't, again, we never conversed other than in those letters, in these 2 letters.
Right.
He said I wrongfully used it. I sent him a letter back saying that I don't believe I wrongfully did it. Here are the reasons. And I don't know if he changed his mind on whether I wrongfully used money or not after the fact, because these are the only communications that I've had with the governor.
But you know he has continually called upon you to fund the special election, right?
Objection 4.
I read some comment that his press secretary made about it, but I haven't heard anything directly from the governor.
Okay. Well, the truth is you guys have not spoken on the phone or in person about this, right?
I don't believe I've ever spoken to the governor on the phone. I have no recollection of ever having spoken to him on the phone.
Or in person?
I've talked to him numerous times.
No, let me get back to the question. I'm not trying to make this difficult. You and he have never conversed about this on the phone or in person?
No, sir.
Okay. Am I right in saying that?
I've not been in communication with the governor other than his letter to me and my reply on this subject, or I've not spoken to him at all after I sent this letter.
Right.
I've not been in contact with him in any way.
Now, you make a statement to the governor of Texas on page 2 of 4 in the next to the last paragraph, and let me know when you're at the sentence where you say, once the OCE investigation was over, the suit settled, and I won re-election in 2016, I assumed this matter was concluded and I could move forward to help President Trump make America great again. Do you see that sentence?
Yes.
At the time you told that to the governor, there was, at that time, there was an open investigation of you by the House Ethics Committee's subcommittee, correct?
Objection.
At the very time you wrote that letter,
Objection 4.
Objection 4.
you knew in 2016 that the Ethics Committee had an open investigation on you, didn't you?
It was my belief at the time that ethics was going to follow the recommendation of the Office of Congressional Ethics and dismiss it, which they normally do.
You didn't tell the governor in this letter that you had an open ethics investigation pending in 2016.
No, because I felt like because of the OCE settlement, it was over. It was my belief at the time that we were merely waiting for the Ethics Committee, which is notoriously slow, to do something, to dismiss it. I was not worried about the ethics investigation at all after the 2016 election.
So is that your justification for not sharing with the governor that you were aware in 2016 that the House Ethics Committee was still investigating you?
I had been informed by my attorneys that the Ethics Committee was only moving forward as a matter of formality. Neither my attorney nor I felt like anything was going to come of it. The Me Too movement had not begun at the 2016 election. That's an entirely accurate statement of how I felt after the election in 2016, and I stand by it.
And this letter that you wrote to Governor Abbott, that was exactly a week before the Port's May 9th meeting in which you were deliberated, correct?
If you say so.
Well, May 2nd to May 9th.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know the date the Port met to deliberate to hire me. I'm sure I knew it, but it's not top of mind.
You felt so strongly about this that you wanted the world to know your position and posted this on your own website, did you not?
The governor wrote me a letter. I replied in the same fashion he replied, by releasing it to the media.
And to the public.
Objection form.
The media is the public. I mean, yeah.
But you didn't release it to the media. You put it on your own website, did you not?
I believe he posted a copy of his letter on his website as well.
So both of you, you and the governor, both put their positions out there regarding this disagreement of whether or not you had acted wrongfully in allowing taxpayers' funds to fund a settlement with Ms. Green.
Objection form. Objection form, that's not his testimony.
And I don't believe we're calling it a disagreement. My belief was, and still is, that the governor was not aware of all of the facts when he wrote the letter. That's the reason I wrote the reply, was to give him my side of the story. The plethora of news articles that you put before me earlier today, few, if any, talk about the OCE investigation or the requirement that the settlement funds be paid by the Office of Compliance out of these appropriated funds.
Let me object to a non-responsive answer. What I'm really trying to, I think you've said this, but I need to confirm. You posted this letter on your website for public consumption.
Objection form.
Yes.
Okay. And continuing, you posted in a public way for the press and the public that you were, quote, becoming a political liability to the Republican establishment in Washington.
Objection form.
Those your words?
Yes.
Okay. Were you including Speaker Ryan in that description as the Republican establishment in Washington?
There was no person in particular that I was referring to.
Was he included within it?
I believe that I was a liability. I believe that the negative press as a result of this was something the Democrats could use to gain election. I feel like I gained a fair amount of respect by stepping back so as I wouldn't drag anyone else down with me.
Let me object to non-responsiveness. I'm just asking a simple question. When you said you were a liability to the Republican establishment in Washington, you were referring to Speaker Ryan within that description.
Objection form. It's not his testimony.
He was included in the group.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And this Republican establishment, at the time, a week before the Port met to discuss you, at that point in time, the Congress and the Senate and the presidency were all in the hands of the Republican Party, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You accuse Speaker Ryan of telling you that he was facing pressure for you to resign immediately. Is that right?
Where are you looking?
The last
And I want to
paragraph
be,
on paragraph, on page 2 of 4. You say here.
yes, that is correct. I want to make sure we get the words exactly right.
Right. And did he tell you why he was pressuring you to quit early?
He never pressured me to quit early.
Well, it says here that excuse me. Let me ask it in this way. Did he tell you who was pressuring him to have you resign early?
Objection form. I'm going to assert the legislative privilege. We're talking about conversations between Speaker Ryan and Congressman Farenthold while he was a congressman. Is that your question?
Let me object to the sidebar.
No. I'm asking you just for clarification's sake.
My question is, when you spoke with Speaker Ryan about his feeling pressure to have you resign immediately, did he tell you who was pressuring him?
Okay, so this is a communication between... let me object. Okay, and I'm asserting the legislative privilege here. This is a communication between Speaker Ryan and Congressman Farenthold. Is that what you're asking him? I just want to make sure that the privilege is proper.
Let me object to the sidebar. We're reading from your letter to the governor, right? You've given this account. You say you spoke to the speaker. You say he informed me he was facing political pressure for me to resign immediately.
Right.
That's what you volunteer. And my next question is, who did he tell you was pressuring him to have you quit immediately?
I think that does fall within the area of legislative privilege. My conversations with the Speaker and my relationship with other members of Congress while I was in Congress does fit squarely within the terms of that. And quite frankly, I'm going to exert that privilege so I don't have to throw any of my colleagues under the bus.
Do you understand, sir, that you have revealed yourself to the governor and to the people of the state of Texas this conversation with Speaker Ryan in your letter to Governor Abbott?
I spoke in generalities and not specifics.
You said specifically, he informed me he was facing political pressure for me to resign immediately. And as I understand it, you were refusing to answer the question of who he shared with you was pressuring him to have you resign immediately.
Objection.
As far as they're members of Congress, I think that's covered under legislative, of the speech and debate clause and legislative immunity.
Are you instructing him not to answer?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And in addition to that, it's
all right. I'm not going to beat you
I
up.
want to make sure my objection's on the record. I don't want to waive anything, but we had a Rule 11 agreement which specifically went into you weren't going to talk about anything dealing with legislation and legislative privilege. And here we are, you're doing it.
Okay, let me object.
Let's make sure we can...
We're not in agreement, and I appreciate that your objections are noted. I'm not going to argue you waived the privilege because you've instructed him not to answer. I accept that. I just want to make sure that we have a good understanding of what you said in this letter. You are not going to tell me what else the Speaker told you about this subject of members pressuring him to have you quit immediately. You're not going to tell me that?
Objection form.
No.
Okay.
On the advice of counsel.
These would be the same elected representatives of the people who you would be lobbying as a legislative liaison for the Port of Calhoun County, right?
Objection form.
Right?
They got what I wanted, what they wanted, so I suspect they're much happier with me now. That's my speculation.
Let me object to the non-responsive answer. The people that you won't tell me about who are pressuring Speaker Ryan to have you resign immediately, those are the same people that you would be lobbying if you were employed as a legislative liaison for the Calhoun Port Authority, right?
Objection form.
There would be a small subset, a very small subset.
Okay, great. Now, in the answer that you volunteered a moment ago, you said you thought certain people would be happy with you.
Again, I took a bullet for the team.
In what sense?
I gave up my seat in order to avoid negative publicity and issues that could be used against all Republicans.
Okay, you're not talking about anything with respect to the port in that happiness answer you just gave me.
No.
Okay, all right.
I think it actually improved my relationship with almost everybody up there, including folks who were at the time, the small group of folks that were my detractors.
Well, sure. In other words, people can have an interest, but both people who agree with you and people who disagree with you, both sides have been following this issue, right?
Objection form.
Who are you referring to?
Well, there's a bunch of them in these emails and texts you've given me from people, some of them calling you all kinds of names and other people saying you've done a good job with this and it's not your fault. I mean, there's a whole, you've given me pages of communications from people.
Objection.
Yeah, nationwide, again, a very small amount of people, but those are the people that I've talked to.
Okay, and you've talked to people who both criticize you and agree with you, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not.
Let me just ask you to confirm something that you'd said in one of your motions in this case that might shorten the deposition somewhat. These issues of the way that was paid, the statements by the governor and the speaker, all of that, all of these are in the press reports and are in the public domain and certainly known by the community at large.
Objection.
Do you agree?
I was a member of Congress that received a lot of press, so I consider myself to be well known in the community.
Sure.
And things affecting my life are known by some in the community.
Sure, and what I'm reading from one of the papers that were filed for you in this case, I just want to make sure there's no distance between you and what you've said in the papers.
Object to the sidebar.
That these allegations and press reports are in the public domain and certainly known by the community at large.
Objection form.
True?
I'm not sure at large is a correct word, but it's known. They're out there for anybody who wants to see them.
Well, do you disagree that it's certainly known by the community at large?
Objection for.
I don't know the percentage of people who know about it or not. You'd be surprised how many people don't follow the news, but it's well known.
Do you know why it's said in the papers in this case that these issues are certainly known by the community at large?
Objection form.
I think.
Objection for.
I mean, I'm not going to quabble over definitions. Okay. I would say the community at large, assuming that's 50% of the people, I'll accept that.
That's perfectly fine.
Sidebar.
And then y'all also had the issue between you and the governor on, and I'm not beating either one of you up over this, but you didn't call him before you resigned, and he didn't call you before he wrote the letter about repaying the taxpayers for the special election.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I apologized, I believe, in the letter for not calling him.
Did he apologize to you for not calling you?
And again, as I said, I've had no communications with the governor since this letter.
So that would be a no. He hadn't apologized to you?
No.
Okay. If I ask you this, I apologize. You make the comment on the third to the last paragraph of your letter to Governor Abbott a week before the port deliberated your hiring that you were tired of cowardly, self-serving politicians. You see that?
Yes.
And you also were tired of the deep state. You see that?
Yes.
And that you were tired of fake news.
Yes.
Do you consider Speaker Ryan part of the deep state?
No.
Governor Abbott?
No.
The House Ethics Committee?
Objection for. That's been answered.
House Ethics Committee?
Members or staff?
The committee itself?
No.
Okay. Or the subcommittee on investigations?
No.
Do you consider the Port Lavaca wave fake news?
Objection.
Objection form.
When you wrote this letter, were you referring to the Port Lavaca wave as part of this fake news business?
Not particularly, no.
Or the Victoria Advocate?
Not particularly, no.
Or the Corpus Christi Caller-Times?
I think they might have been in my brain.
Okay, fair enough. The Houston Chronicle?
Again, I believe that the phenomena of fake news, all media outlets fall victim to it, some intentionally and some not.
But you were not referring to any one of these except the Caller-Times in this particular...
Again, I wasn't particularly specifically referring to the Caller-Times. I was referring to the phenomena of fake news, and in particular, reporters unwilling to give the entirety of both sides, reporting things from other reporters rather than original sources, and not doing due diligence to make sure what they're publishing is either entirely true or complete.
Right, but I mean, I just want to make sure that since this is a week before the port deliberated your hiring, did you have any, well, let me rephrase that question. Maybe I misspoke. The week before they deliberated your hiring on May the 9th, you were not suggesting by this fake news animosity toward the Wave, the Advocate, or the Chronicle?
Objection.
Right?
Again, what I was referring to with fake news is the news media in general not reporting both sides of the story, not reporting all of the facts, and not particularly, and appearing to me to not particularly care if they got it right or wrong.
And my question is, has the Port Lavaca Wave done that?
I have not read every story that they've published, so I can't tell you if I would be surprised if they haven't fallen victim to it, whether it was intentional or not.
I just want to know any specific accusations you have against the Wave for being fake news.
I have no specific...
Victoria Advocate.
Objection form.
I don't feel like they've covered this case. I don't believe they've covered this case or my retirement in a way that I would consider to be fair and accurate.
You don't think they pointed out every time you've said that you acted lawfully and that you'd acted appropriately in everything you did? You don't think they've reported that?
Again, I don't think they've done what I would consider to be as professional a job as I would hope.
What did you want them to do that they didn't do?
Objection form. Objection relevant.
Again, I am unhappy with the tone and some of the contents of some of the stories that they've printed. Without going back and reading them all, I can't name specifics.
Okay.
The same is true with the Caller-Times and certainly the Texas Tribune.
What about the Houston Chronicle?
Again, I'd have to go back and look at all of their stories.
But are there any grievances that you have in your mind today of where any media outlet has engaged in fake news or said something false about you?
Objection form. Objection relevance. Clearly beyond the scope of discovery authorized in the judges.
This letter referred to fake news in general, whether it was about me, whether it was about President Trump, whether it was about anything. That is what this letter meant. So I think we're straying way off into what my personal opinion of specific media outlets is. I think if you were to talk to any conservative, they'd think MSNBC is fake news. If you talk to any liberal, they would think that Fox News is fake news.
I understand that, but the reason why I'm asking you this question, we're using the language that you have placed in the public record.
Correct.
Objection to the sidebar.
To Governor Abbott, and so I just want to make sure that
I was referring to the media in general.
I don't want to say necessarily use the word smear or stereotype, but you have used this label in your letter without any specific example of any news gathering organization mistreating you in any way. Isn't that right?
Objection form, that's not what he said.
This letter was referring to the phenomena of fake news. The fake news with respect to President Trump made it more difficult for me and every other member of Congress to do their job to make America great again, which I think is bolstered by my comment also in this letter about doing so. Yes, it's partially about me, but this letter, we're talking about the phenomena of fake news in general and its negative effect both on the ability of Congress to get things done and the American public's understanding of the important issues in our nation. I have a radio, television, film degree. I've worked in media since I was 15 years old, and the media used to hold themselves up as the neutral arbiter of the truth. And getting it right was more important than getting it fast, and that's gone. And I think what has happened to the media in general in this country has done a great disservice to our republic.
Let me object to the non-responsive answer.
What part of it is non-responsive?
Let me object to the sidebar. I just want to make sure.
I think you got to clarify.
My question.
Wait a minute, counsel. What part of his response was non-responsive? So we can make the record clear today what it is.
Object to the sidebar. I just wanted you to.
Are you not going to provide me that information?
Object to the sidebar. I just wanted you to confirm that you didn't cite any specific examples of any news gathering organization's shortcoming when you used this label in the letter to the governor of the state of Texas of, quote, fake news.
He knows what fake news is, I'm sure.
Object to the non-responsive answer. My question is not what the governor knows or what he thinks. My question is and I'm trying to get to the end here, I just want you to confirm you did not cite any examples whatsoever of any news gathering organization mistreating you in any way when you labeled those who gather news as fake news.
Again,
right?
I was not referring to fake news with respect to me. I was referring to fake news in general. So that's not what I was talking about.
Let me object to the non-responsive answer. I want to ask you this then. The cowardly, self-serving politicians, you see that word you use there? Are you talking about Speaker Ryan then because he didn't back you up and let you serve?
Objection form.
The Speaker did back me up.
He's the one that asked you to resign.
He asked me to retire, not resign.
I mean retire, beg pardon. Yeah, I'm just asking you, who are the cowardly, self-serving politicians you're referring to with Governor Abbott in this letter that was written a week before the port deliberated your hiring?
Objection form.
I was referring to any person who does not stand up for their beliefs and doing and voting for what is right and choosing to put politics over policy with no individual person in mind.
Well, you are aware the Speaker has stated publicly that he expects you to repay the monies that were used, the public funds that were used to settle the Green case, right?
Again, I have not had a conversation with the Speaker after my lawyers and I determined it would be illegal to do so. So I do not know what his current belief is.
I didn't ask you what.
Because my belief at the time I spoke to the Speaker is I could repay it, and we agreed on that. However, more knowledge induced me to change my mind, and I don't know where the Speaker stands today.
Let me object to non-responsive. I'm not asking you where the Speaker stands today. I'm saying that the Speaker in the past has called upon you to repay those funds.
Objection form.
Right?
Object to the sidebar.
The Speaker has called for a lot of things in the past that he's changed his mind on, but yes.
Okay, let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. And am I right that anyone who thinks that you ought to repay the taxpayers or even give the money to a charity, would you call those who believe that I know you disagree with it, but would you call them cowardly, self-serving politicians if they feel that way?
No.
Objection
Okay.
form.
All right. And you're aware that these two office holders, the Texas governor, who's a Republican, and the Speaker of the House, who is a Republican, in the past have both called you to pay that money back, right?
Objection form, asked and answered.
Yes.
Okay. And those two are not in mindless opposition to the President of the United States, are they?
Objection form.
No.
Okay.
I don't know where you pulling mindless opposition. I don't know.
The words you used
Okay.
in your letter to Governor Abbott.
Oh, the never Trumpers. Okay.
Yeah, they're not never Trumpers.
No,
are
the
they?
president. No, the president and the.
I mean, the Speaker and
Yeah, yeah.
the Governor are
No.
not.
No.
Okay. How long have you known Randy Boyd?
Probably six years or so.
How much money has he personally contributed to you?
Objection.
I'd have to go and look at
Objection
campaign
form.
finance report to answer that question. I don't know.
You certainly know it's more than 10,000, don't you?
Objection form.
Well, he can contribute $2,500 a cycle, so I would imagine it's over 10,000. Yes.
Do you consider him a friend, personal friend?
Yes.
How long have you been a personal friend of his?
Probably about four or so years, 4 or 5 years.
Are you aware of any other candidate that the port notified that it was considering hiring a legislative liaison besides you?
No.
Does Exhibit 2 contain all of the records that are kept of communications you've had on the one hand and the Calhoun Port Authority on the other regarding your employment?
Objection form.
It doesn't include phone conversations, as I don't necessarily have a record of those, but it's all texts or emails.
Okay. And what records do you keep of communications you've had with Mr. Boyd, the board chairman?
If they're over the phone, none. Maybe there may be some, over the years, we get logs of people to call for fundraising events. There may be records of my making calls to him and his response to that.
How do you communicate with Mr. Boyd?
Since I've only spoken to him twice since I've left Congress, once in person, and I think once over the phone.
Okay, but let's say, what is today? We're in, is today the 1st of August?
Yeah.
August 1st. For the last couple of years, what's your preferred method of communication with him?
Phone call.
Beg pardon?
Phone call.
Okay, not email?
No.
Okay. And not text?
I would occasionally text him, hey, can you talk? Or
Okay.
I generally will preface, not generally, sometimes will preface a phone call with a text.
Do we agree it would be important to know whether a candidate for a job of a lobbyist had used public funds to benefit private parties
Objection.
while in office?
Objection form.
Yes.
Okay. And as a former elected congressman, you know the public and voters would be very interested in that topic.
Objection form.
I don't know how very interested in they'd be. It would be a topic of interest. But again, in my case, I didn't use public funds to settle a private matter.
No, I understand that, but in addition to that, let me just ask you this. As a congressman, did you attempt to steer private business Mr. Boyd's way as an elected congressman?
No.
Objection form.
That would be illegal and unethical.
And turning to Exhibit 10, and it may be in the order in the big stack there, I think.
I don't have the big stack.
I'll give it back to you.
Let's see. Thank you for that.
The last.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to show you Exhibit 10 and ask if you can confirm that news article was also on May the 2nd of this year.
Objection 4.
Again, I didn't read the Chronicle, so I can't answer that question. I'm assuming that it is.
Okay. Now, do we agree? Did you, in fact, what it says here? It says that Farenthold, quote, blames the Me Too movement, unquote, for targeting him in a, quote, witch hunt because of your quote, unwavering support, unquote, for President Donald Trump. You see that?
No, but where is it?
It's on the page 3 of 6, and it's the second full paragraph. My question is, you don't blame the Me Too movement for the House Ethics Committee investigating the 4 areas that we discussed earlier today, are you?
I believe the public attention to the Me Too movement created a political environment where it would be much more difficult for the members of the Ethics Committee to separate politics from the facts. But again, this is not. I did not speak to the Chronicle. I assume this is something they're pulling out of the Abbott letter. I had no independent contact with the Chronicle with respect to anything in that article. So anything in there is what they took liberties with from my letter to the governor.
Take a look at the letter to the governor and see if you're right that the Chronicle is quoting your letter to Governor Abbott with respect to the Me Too movement and the witch hunt.
I believe.
Objection.
I don't know where the Abbott letter has gone. There it is. The press, however, would not let go. With my current unwavering support of President Trump, the Me Too movement, and the current cutthroat environment, I was back under attack. I believe that's where they pulled that from.
Okay, where's the witch hunt part?
I don't believe I use that. I don't know if I use that or not. So, if it's not in the letter, I did not give an interview with the Chronicle or anyone with respect to the letter. So that quote would be inaccurate if it's not in the Abbott letter.
So do you, I just want to make sure that we get a clear record. Do you contend that the House Ethics Committee and its investigative subcommittee are any sort of witch hunt?
I believe that the House Ethics Committee was under political pressure to find a scapegoat. And I was there at the time. So yes, I do believe that.
Okay. And these would
And I believe Congress in general was under pressure.
Okay. And these are the same people that you desired to lobby on behalf of the Calhoun Port Authority.
And
Objection 4.
And by resigning, I did them a favor and took myself and this whole issue out. Quite frankly, from a lobbying standpoint, I think I did them a favor by resigning when I did. And I think it actually helps me as a lobbyist.
Let me object to non-responsive. I'm just, the same people who you have said were, I don't want to put words in your head, the witch hunt or however you, the capitulating or whatever, are people that you desired to lobby on behalf of the Calhoun Port Authority, right?
Objection 4.
Objection 4.
It is when you speak, it is normal to throw Congress in general under the bus because Congress has an approval rating down with roaches and rodents, and that's accepted practice. But when you start throwing individuals under the bus, then you're starting to tread into an area that would damage your ability to work with that person, either as a current member of Congress or as a lobbyist after your tenure in Congress. So the way Washington works, in my belief, in my experience, is the generalities are fine. When you start naming individuals and throwing them under the bus, you're burning bridges.
And I gather you don't agree that you were burning bridges when you claimed that the Republican establishment had let you down.
No.
Objection form.
I'm not a bridge burner by nature.
And in terms of this notion, I think you answered a question a moment or two ago that people, the general public, some elements of the general public can see what you called fake news in media outlets that are perceived not to be of their liking. For example, I think you used a specific example is that liberal-minded people can see Fox News as fake news, or conservatives or the Trump folks might say that MSNBC or CNN is fake news or whatever.
Objecting sidebar.
Did I basically understand what you were sharing with us about
Yes.
that? Okay, all right.
But the term is broader than that.
In what sense?
And specific stories can be fake news, or perceived bias can label an outlet as being a purveyor of fake news.
In any of what you've provided in the subpoena documents or in any exhibits that we've looked at before, is there any news outlet at all across the spectrum who has not reported that it was your position that you had not acted wrongfully or unlawfully in settling the Green case the way you did?
There are quite a few articles out there that I do not believe give any of my side of the story or only part of my side of the story.
Do you have any specific criticism of any of the ones we've looked at today?
I didn't read them with that in mind, but I imagine I could find a complaint in one or more of them.
But do you have a memory of any of them as we sit here today?
I have a memory of the reports in general. One of the reasons I quit reading and quit talking to the media during a lot of this on this topic was I didn't feel like, regardless of what I said, my complete side of the story would get out. As I said before, I'm embarrassed to have been a part of the media.
Because you were yourself at one point on the radio?
Yes.
He needs to change the tape, and I think we'd be no more than 20 or so minutes after the change, but we've got more than 2 minutes, so let's go off the record for him to change the tape and anyone to take any other personal time they need.
This is the end of tape 2, time on
I could use the restroom break.
Yes.
Perfectly.
This is the start of tape 3, time on record 3:03.
Let's look at exhibit number 25, the last page of that exhibit, and let me know when you're on the last page if you don't mind.
Digital edition, FAQ, feline. You don't mean the last page. Second to last page.
Yes, thank you for that. I appreciate your correcting me on that. That's right. The last full paragraph of the story, do you see it?
Yes.
Does that confirm that even in June, after you were hired by the port on June 26th, that the governor is continuing
no disrespect intended, continuing to call you a disgraced ex-congressman?
That's not the governor, it's his spokesperson. So I think that's indicative. The governor didn't say it. He's potentially distancing himself by having a spokesperson say it.
That's what you think?
Again, I think he's backing away from it, or he would have said it himself. But I don't know what the governor is thinking.
Okay. You think the governor's backing off?
Again, he rather than say it in my office when I didn't want to say something, I would have a spokesperson say it for me. So I don't. That's the way I was. I don't know how the governor operates.
So you're speculating about that?
Yeah, and I probably shouldn't be. But
okay.
I do note it was a spokesman and not the governor.
Fair enough. And who is Representative Mark Walker, Congressman Mark Walker?
He's a congressman from the Carolinas.
Is he part of the Republican folks or the Democratic folks?
He's an R.
What's your relationship with him?
We're acquainted and served on the. We were served on the Republican Study Committee together, and again, I wouldn't call him a close friend. I would call him an acquaintance.
Okay. All right. And can you identify exhibit number 30 as the referenced attachments to the emails that were produced within deposition exhibit number 2 that are correlated with the email to which the attachment should have been included?
Yeah, this looks like the employment agreement that I got from Mr. Hausman.
Well, let me object to non-responsive. I don't want to examine you on any of those. I just want you to confirm that what I was handed by Mr. Dulski are the attachments to the emails that were omitted in exhibit number 2, and they're correlated with the Bates number of the email.
I believe that is correct, yes.
Okay, well, then that can go back to court
Okay,
order.
yeah, I believe that is
That's all
correct.
the questions I have on that. And exhibit number 29, as I understand it, is the privilege log for the documents that have not been produced?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
And those are all with respect to the request for information regarding any communications regarding my employment with the port.
Okay. All right. Do you have exhibit 10 before you?
I do.
Is it true that at the time the port hired you at a sum of $13,333 a month, you had already said that your services as a congressman were not needed in Washington, D.C., right?
Objection form.
I don't recall those terms, no. I think I have a statement that was released when I resigned, but I don't think that I said my services weren't needed. I think I pointed out some of the accomplishments that I had completed, and those were the big deals currently facing the district.
Right, but do you deny having a conversation with Houston Chronicle reporter Jeremy Wallace on or about May the 2nd, 2018?
I don't recall speaking to a crowd. I was not speaking to many reporters, but let me see if anything in here refreshes my memory.
And if it helps you to speed things along, I want to direct you to the last 2 paragraphs of the story.
That is correct. We're in August recess, so that's correct. All that's been done, the bulk of what's been done since I left was appropriations bills, which I doubt will get through the Senate intact. We're gone for August recess for a month, and word on the street is most of October will be given back for a recess. So folks can go back and campaign.
Yeah, let me just, I just want to object to the responsiveness. The quote that you are quoted here is accurate, what you said, that Congress was shutting down until November as members go back to their districts to campaign for another term in office.
I don't believe that's the entirety of the quote, but that looks like a part of it.
Right, and this is something that was said on May the 2nd, 2018, right?
I don't know the date it was said.
Look on the first page.
I mean, that's the date it was published. That
Yeah.
may not have been the date it was said. It may not have been the date I said it.
Is it true that there's a light agenda in the fall?
Yes.
Okay.
We were actually told, if you'd like me to elaborate on that, we were actually told that if you had a bill, a messaging bill you wanted to get through, put it up, because we were going to pass a lot of stuff for messaging purposes. And not to expect the Senate to get to anything because they're going to be focused primarily on confirmation of judges.
Okay. All right. In the run-up to the May 9th port meeting, with whom had you had oral conversations about working for the port?
I'm not sure of the dates. The only people I've ever talked to about working for the port were Mr. Hausman and Mr. Boyd. And after I became aware that they were going to offer me a job, I talked with my wife about it, and I'm an employment law attorney in Washington.
Okay, I'm only concerned...
And a couple of attorneys.
Well, thank you for that. I'm only concerned about the port people at this point. You said Mr. Boyd and Mr. Hausman?
Yes.
Okay. Did you on the one hand and either one of them on the other hand discuss these issues that had arisen between you and the governor?
Objection form.
I don't know.
You don't know, or you don't think you don't?
I don't think so.
Okay. And like
Again, I didn't have, I was offered the job, and then there was a period of time before I was actually employed. And I don't recall any specific conversations before I was offered the job.
Okay, well, let's get a chronology together. When were you offered the job?
I don't do dates. I don't know.
How much time lapsed between the time when you were offered and when you finally went to work?
I think we could determine that based on the date of my first email with Mr. Hausman and my hire date. We would have to go back and look. I don't know the dates.
Okay, so April, you were in communication verbally with Mr. Hausman and Mr. Boyd?
Objection form.
Would have to, again, I didn't start talking to them until I got the offer. The date of that would be within a few days of when the first email was exchanged.
So were you offered the job before the May 9th meeting?
Objection form.
I don't know the date I was offered the job.
Was it offered in writing, by email, or over the phone?
Over the phone.
Okay.
But again, I couldn't tell you the date. I couldn't tell you the date.
At any point between the time the day you resigned in Congress until the day that you started work for the port, did you have a conversation with Mr. Hausman about any of the issues we've discussed with respect to, first, the use of taxpayers' funds to settle the Green case?
I'm not allowed to discuss that under the settlement agreement, so I certainly wouldn't have discussed it with Mr. Hausman. And again, I'm not confirming or denying that the settlement was $84,000.
Right, but did you discuss the issue that you'd issued press releases and the like about this topic? I'm not...
I don't recall.
Okay. And likewise, same question about Mr. Hausman. Did you discuss with him the disagreements that you were having with Governor Abbott?
I don't believe I was having a disagreement with Governor Abbott.
Did you discuss the fact that your letter says he's wrong and that he calls you a disgraced ex-congressman?
Objection.
Did y'all talk about that subject?
No,
Okay.
not to my recollection.
Okay. Did y'all talk about the business about Speaker Ryan telling you that he was facing pressure to get you out of Congress?
Objection form.
Again, we did not discuss it, but I'm sure Mr. Boyd was, I thought Mr. Hausman was aware of whatever was in the media.
Okay. Okay. And same questions for Mr. Boyd. Did you talk with Mr. Boyd about any of these issues about the how it was reported that taxpayers' funds were used to settle the Green case, the issues with Speaker Ryan, or the issues with the Governor Abbott? Did you talk about any of those with Mr. Boyd?
Again, I didn't speak to anybody about the use of $84,000, the issue of taxpayer funds. I never mentioned $84,000. Didn't talk about the terms of the settlement agreement to anybody, Mr. Boyd included. I may have between the culmination of the Green case and my retirement from Congress, discussed it in a fundraising call or in a social setting with Mr. Boyd. It would not have been unreasonable for me to have done that, but I have no specific recollection of any such conversation.
Okay, what about after your resignation?
Not to my recollection.
With Mr. Boyd?
You're correct.
Okay. Did you discuss with Mr. Boyd or Mr. Hausman any of the potential downsides of hiring you as its legislative liaison? Did y'all talk about pros and cons?
I think we had a conversation about the fact that I was a media focus right now, and we both agreed that in a month or so that would die down and would be able to go on with my job without a lot of media scrutiny. Okay. That has, with this litigation, that has not come to pass.
Let me object to the non-responsive portion of the answer. Who are the Crush Girls?
Objection, form, and relevance?
It was a viral marketing group in Corpus Christi.
Share with me about, forgive me for being a hillbilly, but what is a viral market?
It's a group of folks that are hired to go out in public and promote a product or service. So, for instance, you've introduced a new product to the market. You send these people out into public using the product or talking about the product.
Yes, sir. And what were the, what are they called? I've forgotten their name already. Almost said the Spice Girls, but not the Spice Girl.
So tell me who they are, who they really, really are.
Well, I forgot the name of them, though. Oh, Crush Girls. Sorry, not Spice Girls. Crush Girls. What are they promoting?
I'm going to object on the grounds that this deposition should be limited to the issue of whether the hiring of Blake Farenthold for the job of legislative liaison is a matter of special interest to the public, and this question in no way relates to that.
I have no idea who their clients were.
That's okay. That's all right.
Or I don't even know if they still exist.
That's okay. Did Mr. Hausman share with you that you would be the first full-time legislative liaison the port had ever had?
Yes.
Did he share with you that you would be among the highest paid people in the employ of the port?
No.
Did he share with you that your hiring would be unprecedented in the sense that they were hiring a full-time lobbyist for the first time, that an ex-congressman would be filling that role, and that the salary would be $160,000 a year?
Objection form.
Objection form.
No, he didn't, but from my understanding of what other ports spend on government relations, it's not unreasonable. I know the Port of Corpus Christi has a full-time legislative person and 2 DC lobbyists, and I think 1 in Austin.
Any of them have the sort of public notoriety in the same class as you?
Objection to form.
I know Beck Brune, who ran for this office, is now an employee of the Port of Corpus Christi. So, I mean, he didn't win the election, but
Right.
he certainly spent some money and developed some notoriety.
Sure.
And I believe the Port of Brownsville employs as a lobbyist Randy DeLay, the brother of the former Speaker of the House, Tom DeLay, who also left under a fair amount of media pressure and was eventually exonerated.
Say that again?
Randy DeLay, Tom DeLay's brother, works for the Port of Brownsville as a contractor. Tom DeLay was indicted and went to prison when he was Speaker of the House of Representatives, and has since appeared on Dancing with Stars and has been exonerated through the appellate system. So I don't think it's that unprecedented.
Okay.
I also know the Port of Corpus Christi interviewed another former congressman for their lobbyist position and chose not to hire him.
And I appreciate that. Did any of them, were any of them confronting the same sort of issues with disagreements or whatever you want to call it between you on the one hand and the governor and Speaker of the House on the other regarding repayments of public funds?
I don't believe I have a disagreement with the Speaker of the House. I don't believe I have a disagreement with the governor. I believe his letter was based on incomplete facts.
Well, then why, help me to help the judge and jury to understand, why is he continuing in June calling you disgraced if you think he is laboring under the wrong impression?
I don't know what's in the governor's thinking. But I also, my job is to legislate primarily on a federal level, so any relationship with the governor would have minimal, I believe, would have minimal impact on my actual job performance in Washington, D.C.
Let me object to non-responsive. Okay, I'm with you. I hear you. Now, it is Exhibit 22. Refresh your memory as to your quote to the Houston Chronicle that a week doesn't go by that the picture of you in the pajamas doesn't show up on Twitter.
I don't have Exhibit 22.
Let's see, I may have it right here.
Again, I haven't disagreed that I've said that.
I'm not trying to suggest you did. I couldn't find it when I was questioning you before, and I was just going to get you to confirm that that's what you told the Houston Chronicle last year, that photo had followed you through the years, and that you told the Chronicle that a week doesn't go by that it doesn't show up on Twitter.
Objection to form. Objection to side.
It's true.
Okay.
I mean, I've said it, and
Fair enough.
I don't know if it's still showing up on Twitter because, again, I'm not following that anymore.
I want to ask you about one other exhibit, and then we will be done. Can you identify Exhibit 31?
I believe it was some casework we did for Mr. Boyd.
Okay. And the page after the letter, looks like a message of some sort. Do you recognize what's on here? It says, from Representative Farenthold, it says, request summary report from the 3/26/15 meeting.
Yeah, we set up a meeting with Mr. Boyd and the Corps of Engineers based on some changes or something going on the some changes he wanted to make and some issues he was having with the Corps. We regularly, part of what the job is mediating or trying to resolve issues that constituents have with government agencies. It's called constituent casework. We settled thousands of issues, whether it's veterans not being paid. It's just a wide variety of issues.
Yes, and this was done for Mr. Boyd, not as a member of the port or not as the chair of the board of the Calhoun Port. This is done to benefit Mr. Boyd with respect to work being done on the Houston Ship Channel, correct?
This was work done on behalf of a constituent having an issue with a government agency.
Yes, I think I'm understanding this. This has to do with his work on another project other than the Calhoun Port Authority, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And
Do I have a copy of that? Just
you can look over my shoulder. Jim Drought copied this for me because I only had it this morning. The people in the email string, for example, Richard Pennell, he's with the Corps, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And who's Joe Ramitz?
Don't know.
Okay, no problem. And Blake Adamy, that's one of your staffers,
He's
right?
my legislative director who handled transportation issues.
Exactly. And you were facilitating a meeting for Mr. Boyd to assist him with a project on the Houston Ship Channel.
He was having an issue with the Corps, and again, something I would do for any constituent.
Sure, I understand.
object to the sidebar.
I don't think I did anything personally on this other than sit in the meeting. This was all handled routinely by my staff.
Right, but under your direction and authority.
Again, we did thousands of these.
Okay. But for example, if we go to the next to the last page, it looks like Blake Adamy, what is he, the director?
Legislative director.
Legislative director. He identifies Mr. Boyd as the board chairman of the Calhoun Port Authority and wants to meet for a dredging project for the Houston Ship Channel. And that you will be meeting with Mr. Boyd at 5 p.m. and he would like to assure Mr. Boyd that there can be a meeting. Can you confirm? You were aware of this, were you not, Mr. Farenthold?
Objection form.
I don't remember it in particular. Again, we did a boatload of these. I mean, I remember sitting down with Mr. Boyd and several members of the Corps where Mr. Boyd laid out his case for the Corps. I didn't have any input in that. I just facilitated the meeting. I think I sat there for about 15 minutes and left.
Okay, and I'm not accusing you of any misconduct whatsoever. I just want to ask, do we agree that your job as a congressman should not be to help private interests get governmental contracts?
Objection form.
My job as a congressman is to help my constituents with issues that they're having with the government. Sometimes those are business issues. It's certainly not my job to push one person over another to get a government contract, but it is to bring economic development to the district that I represent. I traveled with Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation on business development meetings. I mean, I did all sorts of things to promote economic growth within the community and to help constituents.
And I think from your answer, you agree that you should not be picking which private enterprises should be doing business with the government.
Yeah, nor did I.
Objection form.
All three of you were speaking exactly at the same time?
So-
and what was your answer?
Sorry, repeat the question. Y'all got me all flustered.
Well, I didn't say a word. These guys both spoke at the same time.
Well, that's why they're getting paid the medium bucks.
Just a minute, I think I might be able to remember it. We agree it would be inappropriate for you as a congressman to be trying to ship public work to specific private interests.
Yeah, nor have I ever done that.
So
We agree, nor have I ever done it.
Right. You've answered two questions. One I asked, one I didn't. My next question was, have you ever tried to benefit a private government vendor or contract for doing public work?
No.
Okay. I'll pass the witness at this time. Thank you.
Reserve questions for trial.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
This is the end of tape 3, the end of the deposition. Time on record 3